abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer,
There's no better way to start your day than with me on Good Morning Grenada. Good Morning Grenada is your one-stop shop. We have information, education, entertainment, your bi-weekly traffic cam, and we link up with the sister isles of Carriacou and PT Martinique. Join me every 6:35 on weekdays for Good Morning Grenada. It's your daily dose of all things Grenadian mixed with just a little bit of crazy.
Good morning, good morning.
I said just a little bit of crazy.
I tell all of the things that take me.
Good Morning Grenada, 6:35 a.m. on weekdays, available on all GBN platforms. Start your morning off right.
abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer,
Once again, folks, and welcome to Doctor on Call. This evening, we have two guests. One is with us. The other will be joining us in a little bit. Dr. Deborah John is with us. It's been quite a while, so her visit on the program has been long overdue. This evening we're talking about the Pharmaceutical Council and other issues surrounding that. Quite a bit of information we'll be sharing with you this evening, and a little later on in the program we will open our telephone line as always to take some calls from you. And also, if you have questions you would like to ask, we will accommodate you as well. So it's a good time to welcome Dr. John back with us. Doc,
yes.
Good evening and welcome back.
Good evening, and thank you very much for inviting me. As you say, yes, it's been a while. COVID has really done a number on a lot of things. So it's good to be back once again.
Yes, indeed. It is good to be back. The role of the pharmacist is a very important one as it relates to health, because without the pharmacist, the doctor's work is almost null and void, because you won't be able to get the patient the medication that they need. And so it is important that everything is in place. The role of the pharmacist is well defined, and of course I know that there are guidelines as it relates to the work of the pharmacist. So let's talk a bit about the Pharmaceutical Council, what it is, who are the people involved, and what's their role.
Okay, all right, so it's actually the Pharmacy Council,
The Pharmacy Council.
not the Pharmaceutical Council. So the Pharmacy Council is a statutory body, and it's constituted under the Pharmacy Act. Okay, so we have a Pharmacy Act, Chapter 241, Section 3, constitutes the Pharmacy Council. So the council was reconstituted on the 13th of July 2020. Okay, so it's a cabinet constituted council guided by the Act. And we held our first meeting actually 1 month later, which would have been the 13th of August 2020. So the constitution of the council, the members of the council are basically, we have the chief medical officer, Dr. Sean Charles, or whoever, sits at the chair of the office of the CMO is on the council. We have the chief pharmacist, in this case, Mrs. Camille Isaac. We have represented from the Grenada Medical Association. That's myself. We also have another medical practitioner, Dr. Beverly Nelson. We have two pharmacists, Mrs. Lydia Andrew Duncan and Mr. Castor Cyrus.
Right.
We have a representative from the Grenada Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Mr. Cedric Mitchell. One person from the Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Kimrond Cummins, and the attorney at law, Ms. Lauren K. Simon. Okay, so at that first meeting, we also elected the chair. I am the chair of the Pharmacy Council.
Right.
And this council will be in office, regulating things for the next 2 years.
Right. But why is it important to have a Pharmacy Council?
Well, you see, you must have standards, and the council is more of a regulatory body, okay, and we work on matters related to regulating pharmaceuticals, regulating the function of the pharmacies and pharmacists. We're here to set standards of practice for pharmacists and pharmacies. We also set in standards for the education and training of pharmacists. Right, because if you don't have anybody to regulate things, what you find is that things will go out of hand.
Oh, that's right.
So we need to register pharmacists. We need to register pharmacies. We need to also deal with importation, wholesaling, distribution of pharmaceuticals and other products as it relates to to the pharmacy and ensure that the safety and well-being of the public is maintained, because if not, just about anything will will get passed.
Because there are times drugs can be recalled, there's new drugs in the market, that all of these things.
Of course. So we want to ensure that the highest standard of the profession is maintained by all concerned.
Right. How many pharmacists do we have in Grenada, though?
We have registered 103 pharmacists, but practicing in Grenada presently we have 99 practicing, but we have 103 on the register.
And this 99 persons, are they practicing in pharmacies, or they're in different areas? What do they do actually?
Well, we have we have the private and the public sector. Okay, so these people are distributed throughout. Between private and public. Similarly, we have like about 27 registered pharmacies. Okay, then when you look at government dispensaries, we have about 37. And then we have wholesalers, distributors, that's about 11. And then we have the dispensaries, we have 5, hospital and private.
Okay, so the pharmacists, they're all spread out.
Yes, between public and private. And of course we have with all of that, we have one pharmacy inspector.
One pharmacy inspector? What is the role of the pharmacy inspector?
Well, as we said, if we're regulating, the inspector role is to ensure that the standards set out by the council is maintained, to ensure that the pharmacy is in keeping with everything registered, in the act. That people not just doing their own thing in the pharmacy, that the premises are in keeping with what is outlined in the act. So the inspector does have a lot of work. Right,
but one inspector, 99 registered pharmacists, 27 registered pharmacies. That's a lot of work. I mean, for one inspector.
Inspector, yes. But Miss Isaac she's there, so you may want her to comment on that.
Right. I'm going to come to Miss Isaac in a moment because I have quite a few questions for her. But before that, the Pharmacy Council here in Grenada, does it fall like under an umbrella body, let's say a regional council or an international council?
Yeah, well, we have signed on to, we're signed on, so we have to the regional council, so we have to be sure that we're following guidelines for those standards. Okay, international guidelines, not just, people may think, well, this is just Grenada. No, we have to fall in line with international bodies that we're registered under.
Just as an aside, so a pharmacist, let's say in Grenada, who decides, look, I want to leave here, go to, let's say, Barbados, with the training and, let's say, experience that they had here, can they just get into the field over there and start working?
Well, it all depends on the place that they're going to, because I know of pharmacists who have left here and gone into other Caribbean islands, and they're practicing. And this is why one of our mandate is to set standards for the education and training of the pharmacists. And we also have the internship program that we're going to be working on. And once they have satisfied the requirements and they are registered, I see no reason why they should not be able to practice somewhere else once the person accept them, once that place accepts them.
Okay, just briefly in terms of training, because you can't just decide, you know what, when I get up this morning, I'm going to go straight into a pharmacy and start working. I know it's specialized training, but does the council also regulate the training that is required for pharmacists?
We are mandated to do it. Right now we're working on quite a bit of regulations, and that is one of the things we have. The training takes place at TAMCC, right? And we, as mandated, are involved in not hands-on training per se, like, okay, the chief pharmacist wouldn't be there teaching a course.
Okay.
But we have within the internship program, when they come out of their training, we have specified places where they go to get further training with regards to the internship.
Okay, wonderful. I want us now to go to our chief pharmacist, Mrs. Camille Isaac. Camille, good evening and welcome. It's really a pleasure to have you on the program this evening. I know you had some little challenges with your setup, but that's all right. What is most important is that the information that is necessary gets out to the people there. So it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Godfrey. Good evening. Thank you for having me on the program.
All right.
Thank you for having us, the council, to discuss what it is our role and function is.
Right, wonderful. So let's start with you first as the chief pharmacist. What's your role in the council as chief pharmacist?
So as chief pharmacist, based on the laws, I'm the secretary to the council. So whatever decisions that have been made, of course, recording the minutes and all of that, and whatever decisions that have been made by the council in terms of regulating the standards of practice of pharmacists, then I effect those which would have been decided by the council.
Okay, wonderful. And of course, at that meeting, whatever happens there, whatever decisions are taken, is that your responsibility to ensure that the other pharmacists are aware of what has to be done and what should not be done and so?
Yes, in terms of, yes, as the secretary to the council.
Okay, all right. Let us talk about the roles and responsibility of the pharmacist. Let's talk a bit about that.
Okay, well, we know what a pharmacist is, the one who actually deals in the matters of medicine in terms of understanding the side effects, the dosage, and all of those interactions and all of those, and being, of course, having that professional skill and competency to dispense those medicines to patients, but of course on prescriptions, and of course we do have over-the-counter, so to give advice and so to patients in terms of how they would use the medicines prescribed.
Okay, wonderful.
In a nutshell.
All right. Are you the inspector?
No. Chief pharmacist and the inspector are two separate roles.
Okay, all right. So, as it relates to the council and that relationship between the council and the pharmacist, also your role as a pharmacy ensuring that the correct medication, the correct dosage is dispensed to the patient and so. Let's talk about that. It is important that, and I've heard it said before, that it is not right that a pharmacist should just dispense medication to a patient without a prescription. Sometimes you get the feeling that it happens, and in some quarters it does not go down so well. How is the council working to deal with things like that to ensure it doesn't happen?
Okay, so I want to backtrack because I think when I just came in, because as you remember you said, I came in late, sorry, apologies, but the challenges that I had, and I still have, I guess, my camera is not showing us the way it should. But as just backtrack, in terms of the council, the role and function of the council is to set the standards of pharmacy practice, yeah? So these standards would involve maybe prescription standards and how prescriptions are dealt with and handled, as well as the prescription drugs and over-the-counter drugs. And there are certain categories into which those medicines would fall and would align. And I think Chair Dr. John Stevens John would have mentioned that we are in the process of developing regulations that would guide that practice. So currently, we do not have the regulations to guide the practice. Of course, so this is where we're at now in terms of developing or standardizing, I should say, because of course you have international regulations that would guide the process, and that's the standard that we would have of course, learned from school as to how you do the dispensing and the types of medicines. And in terms of also, we're also aligned with international standards like the INCB, International Narcotic C Control Board, INCB, right? In terms of, and that actually deals with the controlled medicines, yeah? So, and those would be strictly prescription, yeah? So this is where we're at, because of course you give the pharmacists like the template or the guide as to how to do their jobs in essence.
Right. Now, the pharmacists doing their job, that's very important, but you must have the medication. It must be available for dispensing. Let's talk, and I'm not sure if yourself or Dr. John can take this one. As it relates to getting medication, we have the people who bring in the medication, we have the distributors and all of that. Let's talk about that relationship. What is required? How do they know what type of medication is required, in what quantities? How is that done?
Right. So there's supposed to be a national inventory list, which we're trying to compile right now, because every year, medicines come on the market, they change, you have certain modifications or, formulations which are added. That is what, so we actually operate under an essential medicines list, yeah? And more so in terms of those basic conditions that we treat here in Grenada. So medicines are generally procured on that basis, like the chronic disease medicines. And from time to time, you may have certain rare conditions, which of course, if persons requesting those medicines would have to make a request for an import license to bring in those, kinds of special medicines from time to time for individuals. But generally, the medicines are procured by wholesalers or distributors, because we don't have any kind of manufacturer here on island. So all medicines would have to be imported into the country. And these individuals need to have a license. So it shouldn't be anybody just bringing in medicines, yeah? Anybody who is supposed to bring in, or who is based on the law, anybody dealing with the business of a pharmacy or any kind of medicine has to have a license to do so.
And where does that license come from?
Who license comes from the Office of the Chief Pharmacist. Ministry of Health.
Okay, wonderful. Now I am giving serious consideration to changing profession. I want to open a pharmacy. I want to sell medication. What do I need to do?
Now, first of all, you need to give us a letter of intent. You say this is what you call, this is your intention, and therefore we send you an application which has some requirements that has to be fulfilled in order for you, and then review would have to be done. The inspector goes to look at the premises to see if it is suitable to carry the medicines that you intend to carry, in terms of maybe the space, and in terms of if you're going to do flammables or anything that's easy to ignite or cause fire, where you store these kinds of medicines. Make sure that you have the like a refrigerator if it's cold storage, and all these other things. You have to have like a sink if you intend to do compounding. Then you have to have the right equipment and so forth to carry out those kinds of functions that a pharmacy would do. And even you need to have it maintained under appropriate temperatures, because medicines need, in order for them to be stable, to maintain their stability. So all these things the inspector would do so, and then you have to meet that. But anybody should not just say, okay, I'm going to open a pharmacy, and just before they start selling medicines. That should not happen, because anywhere, and I want to emphasize, anywhere medicines based on the Act, it's stored for distribution, wholesale, retail, compounding, you must be licensed to do so. Because you see, it's for public, and we are responsible for ensuring public safety. So we have to ensure that these premises are well, they're secured, because we don't want to have medicines just going in the hands of anybody, because it has to be, of course, under medical supervision, as it were, because the pharmacist is just fulfilling the prescription, more or less, of what the doctor would have diagnosed in order to help the patient to receive an improved health outcome.
Right.
So anywhere medicines, and for that matter, I think Chairman Stephen John would have indicated about poisons and so.
Yeah.
So poisons are also under the umbrella of the Pharmacy Council. Yeah. So whether it's for agricultural use or animal or what have you, then you have to be registered with the Pharmacy Council to carry out those functions.
Does someone need some sort of pharmaceutical training before they get into that kind of business, or not?
Well, the business of a pharmacy is strictly for pharmacists, and based on the act, you must be a pharmacist in order to carry out the business, because that is what a pharmacist does, deal with all the medicines and so forth. So you must, first of all, you have to be a pharmacist. Now, there are some businesses which they're owned by a non-pharmacist, but the pharmacist has to be the one responsible for the day-to-day activities of that pharmacy.
Okay, wonderful. So we have a lot more to talk about, but we did take a short break, and when we come back, I want to go to Dr. John and talk a little bit about the language of the medicine, prescribing, refills, and all of that. So stay with us. We'll be back with you in just a moment, folks.
Introducing Color by Sissons. 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 Color by Sissons.
We shall fight them on the beaches. We shall defend our islands and our oceans to rid our waterways of plastic and other marine litter. We shall fight in the mountains, the valleys, on the coastline. We shall never surrender until every home on every street in our cities, towns, and villages in the OECS learn to reuse, reduce, and recycle plastic and prevent the pollution of our beloved ocean. We shall fight marine litter together with our sports clubs, our churches, the private sector, our schools. Join the fight. We shall never surrender.
This message is brought to you by the OECS Commission with funding from the Government of Norway. Remlit, tackling ocean pollution from tooth to sooth.
How going on, boy?
Hey, good old things.
Hey, Daisy.
Yeah.
Boy, in line, boy. Your house looking a real good day.
Boy, it's thanks to the hard-working and professional staff at the Housing Authority of Grenada. They handled me real nice. They did my plan, they did the construction, and I didn't even have to worry about a thing. They were there with me every step of the way, supervising the job, asking me about my concerns, giving me feedback as the house took shape. They were there from start to finish, and even put the keys in the palm of my hand. I give them an A++ for customer service.
Oh, it's people from housing bad, boy.
Boy, not bad. Excellent. If you're thinking about constructing your home, why not consult the Housing Authority of Grenada? You could visit them right down in the Sandino complex, or give them a call, 440-1015 or 440-1016. Or check out their website, hag473.com. They go handle you. They go jog your blocks, they go draw your plan, they go tote your materials. Hey man, where you going? The Housing Authority of Grenada is your choice for affordable housing and a stress-free construction experience.
Hills and Valley Pharmacy offers both wholesale and retail pharmaceutical and over-the-counter products. We have the most competitive and affordable prices. We are the agents for Vit Plus multivitamin for healthy everyday lifestyle and Sonatogen powder. Hills and Valley Pharmacy supplies the best quality, name brand clinical products such as Rescue Oil, Bio Oil, Neutrogena, Aveeno, and Claracil. We offer the most convenient opening hours. Our telephone numbers are 435-6904 or 6903. Remember, at Hills and Valley Pharmacy, your health is our business. We care.
Now open, Hills and Valley Medicare Center, your one-stop for medical supplies, massage therapy, physiotherapy, and an in-house physician. At Hills and Valley, your health is our business.
Hey folks, you're invited to tune in to Grenada Music to the World program, hosted by Eugene Gittens on Saturday mornings from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9, Hot FM 98.5, 98.7, GBN TV, and all their social media platforms. The only totally local music program in Grenada, representing all genres of music. So it's Green's Music to the World on Saturday mornings from 10 a.m. to 12 noon on GBN with the music icon himself, Mr. Eugene Gittens. See you then.
Mothers are special and should always be celebrated. One great way to honor the caregivers among us is through song. It is for that reason the Grenada Broadcasting Network is teaming up with some of the best talents on the island to bring you Celebrating Queens, a 2-hour virtual concert on Mother's Day, Sunday, May 9th. From the scenic 61 Degrees West Restaurant and Bar on Grandin's Beach, we celebrate Mom, your mother, our heroes. Celebrating Queens, celebrating Mother's Day.
There's no better way to start your day than with me on Good Morning Grenada. Good Morning Grenada is your one-stop shop. We have information, education, entertainment, your bi-weekly traffic cam, and we link up with the sister isles of Carriacou and PT Martinique. Join me every 6:35 on weekdays for Good Morning Grenada. It's your daily dose of all things Grenadian, mixed with just a little bit of crazy.
Good morning, good morning.
I said just a little bit of crazy.
I tell all of the things that take me.
Good Morning Grenada, 6:35 a.m. on weekdays, available on all GBN platforms. Start your morning off right.
A message by the Grenada Distillers Limited.
You want a hand sanitizer to do 3 things: kill germs, be gentle, and to go where you go. You can get all of that in our hand sanitizer. Hard on germs, gentle on hands, affordable. Remember, hand sanitizers contain alcohol. Keep away from heat and flames and avoid contact with eyes. Available at retailers island-wide.
A message by the Grenada Distillers Limited.
GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number 1. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11, K105.5 and 105.9, Hot 98.5 and 98.7, GBN Television Facebook page and YouTube channel, and www.gbn.gd. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere.
Just go and they buy poison.
Welcome back, folks. It's Doctor in Call. Dr. Stephen John is with us, and Mrs. Camille Isaac, the chief pharmacist. Doc, I want to come to you now and speak a bit about the inspector, because there seemed to be a very important role there. Off camera, we were talking a bit about what is expected of that individual, the inspector. Is he only restricted to pharmacies in terms of what should be inspected?
No, okay. The inspector, he or she, as I mentioned to you, is someone who is appointed by the Public Service Commission. Mm-hmm. This person is usually a pharmacist, okay?
Right.
So I think presently we have a male, right?
Inspector.
But yeah, a male inspector. But the inspector, he or she, at the time, their role is to enforce the provisions of the Act. Okay, so the inspector may enter your premises. You said you wanted to change profession and go to have a pharmacy, and you submit your application. He is going to inspect.
Right.
Okay, so the inspector goes, make sure that everything is where we want it to be. Okay, you're supposed to have a sink in your dispensary, that you have it there, that the temperature for your medication, everything is set out according to the regulations. Okay, now your inspector also is able to inspect your stock books, because you're supposed to keep a record of what you have, and especially your narcotics. Okay, you want to make sure that you have that in order, because he's going to inspect it. Now, any place where pharmaceuticals are sold, not just medication, wherever poisons are sold, because we have places that sell poisons. The inspector is supposed to go there, make sure that the poisons are labeled the way they're supposed to be, that they're in a location that they're supposed to be. You have some stores that sell pharmaceuticals, you know.
So like supermarkets, there may be an area where you get things like rubs and ointments for strains and all of
tablets,
these things. Tablets,
the inspector is supposed to inspect there as well. And you have stores, what should I call them? Convenience stores that sell a lot of these pharmaceutical products. The inspector, first of all, these places should be registered.
Right, okay.
Right? And he has the the right to inspect them. Because you see a lot of products on shelves that we know. You have the super bleaching creams and all these things, and they're just sitting on shelves, and they can do harm.
Right.
So the inspector, he's going to inspect there. Now, if he has suspicion, or if there is a report of some suspicious activity that goes against the Act, he can go there. He can also take samples of some of these products so that we can work with them.
Right.
Right?
There's what about products that, for example, the instructions are in a foreign language?
Okay.
And I have come across some of those.
Yes, I've come across some of those as well.
Yeah. Where does that sit with the council and the Pharmacy Act?
Well, that's a no-no, and the Pharmacy Council has the right to address those matters, because remember, one of our role, we have to set the standards for the practice. We have to ensure the safety of the population, the safety of the people who are going to be using those.
Right.
So you're not the only one seeing it. I have seen medication where all I could recognize on the box is 250. The number 250.
That's a price, or that's the strength of the medication?
I guess it's the strength.
Okay.
I know. I'm talking about something that I prescribed.
So how can you use a medication that you not even understanding what is written there?
That should not be dispensed, because, for instance, if we should go through a doctor's prescription, let's go to it. When a prescription is written, the doctor is supposed to clearly write the person name, the address of the person, the age of the person. And now this is not only for human beings, because the Pharmacy Council also deal with animals.
Right.
So if that if that prescription is for an animal, the name of the person in control of the animal, more than likely their name goes on it.
Right.
Right? They're supposed to put the date on the prescription. They're supposed to write the directions in English, because yes, we may have people speaking different languages, but English is our standard language.
Yes.
So that should be written on the prescription. It is written in English. All right, and it goes to the pharmacy. Now the pharmacist is supposed to dispense something in English that could be understood. So you can't just give me something in sticks and this kind of writing and give it to the patient. No, you can't do that. So it has to be done in a language, and there are certain things that in English language, and there are things that the pharmacist has to do when filling that prescription. Ms. Isaac being the pharmacist, I will leave that for her to talk about. But from the doctor's end, you're supposed to clearly indicate what you want on the prescription. Some people have this thing that, the doctor handwriting is no. You're supposed to put it clear, put your registration number, put everything on that prescription. So when it gets to the pharmacist doesn't have any misunderstanding of what is there. So this thing about giving my patient a box with something that just says $250 and you can't understand nothing else on it, that's a no-no. And the council will, these are some of the things that we regulate.
Okay.
Right? Things like that will have to come off the shelf.
Right. Camille, let me come to you on that same issue. So, the person or the business person who is getting medication from outside into Grenada, so you order how many, whatever the amount is of let's say tablets, and when it gets here, the packaging is in a foreign language. What happens? What happens there? How does the pharmacist know or understand that, look, what I ordered is what I got?
Well, I cannot speak to what the pharmacist, because maybe pharmacists can speak different languages, but I can only speak English. So, but patients need to understand. Now, there are two things going on here. The box with the original label as to the active ingredients, the side effects, and all the instructions contained for the medicine contained in the package, that is separate to the label that the pharmacist would write on. I just want to clarify that. So I don't want persons to think that the pharmacist is writing the label in a different language, right? So the label, of course, will be written in English, yeah? Now, there are, because within the region, you may trade with, let's say, South American countries, and generally they speak a different language, and most often it's Spanish, yeah? So, but what is supposed to happen is that there should not be, products should be labeled, or the products should be, we should have them in English. Now, there are products, yeah, pharmaceuticals, which have multiple languages, yeah? So you would see a section on the leaflet, because you see, once you dispense something, the literature, the patient who is consuming it needs to be able to know what it is, just in the event that there may be some side effect or some untoward effect or some kind of idiosyncrasy, meaning that the medicine operates in a way different to how it's supposed to operate. Then we need to know exactly what is the active ingredients and all the other ingredients or the additives, yeah, that this tablet, for instance, was made with, yeah? So it is important that the public is aware that the medicines should be written in English, especially whatever it is you're consuming. So those packages, sometimes it's written in those 4 or 2 different languages, English and Spanish, but sometimes, as Doc was alluding to, there are some which you do hear complaints that are not written in English. There's no English, so you do not understand what it is you're taking. And based on the standards, even as the Bureau of Standards, I remember I've seen this document where those prepackaged goods, and which is where pharmaceuticals fall, should be in English. So the patient should be furnished with, I'm not sure if the packaging has a translation or wherever it's purchased from, the supplier should be able to ensure that the patient, in our language, it is in our language, and we're able, it's in English, which is in English, and patients should be able to read and understand what it is that they would be consuming.
Right. Another issue. So I go to the doctor, and Dr. John gives me a prescription which says acetaminophen. and I go to the pharmacy, I give it to the pharmacist, and then the pharmacist comes from around the counter, goes to the shelf, and picks up a box of Tylenol, takes out some tablets, and give it to me. Should I be concerned here?
Of course, because you saw the physician told you acetaminophen, yeah? And then you noticed that the pharmacist gave Tylenol, yeah? Now, there are standards of that is another area in which it has to be addressed in terms of standards of practice, because you have brand name, which may be the Tylenol as you would use, and then the generic name or the scientific name, which is the acetaminophen. Yeah? Now, some physicians may not mind that you interchange with a generic, with a brand, but there are some physicians who would specifically say that they would want either the brand of the drug. Okay. Although they are, like you make cake, you may call your cake Godfrey, I call mine Camille, but we may put more or less the same ingredients. But however, there are some medicines which we know they may be biosimilar, maybe the way they act in the body in terms of their distribution, metabolism and so on, or similar effects with which they produce. And sometimes it could be the change in one or two diluents, because you may put an essence, a different brand of essence and a different brand of essence, and that alone can maybe cause the way the tablet is distributed or metabolized or what have you within the system. So certain small things can cause, very slight and minor adjustments. So sometimes physicians are very specific, and pharmacists need to maybe inquire of the doctor. Sometimes you're familiar, okay, doctor would not mind if I don't have the Tylenol, but if you're not sure, then it needs to be cleared by the physician to know if you can substitute acetaminophen for Tylenol. So these are the standards of practice that we hope to, to help, pharmacists understand from the council standpoint that these are important, and this is the way that they need to carry out their function. Yeah.
So does the patient? So I see that happen. Can I ask the pharmacist, why are you giving me this when my prescription says?
Absolutely, but that is professional practice, because you're supposed to say, okay, I am substituting this, because generally the generic brands, they are cheaper than the brand, because of course the research and patents and what have you that would have gone into all of that in composing the price. But you're supposed to, and that is professional practice, which is where we hope and where we want, all pharmacists to comply with, because patients need to be aware. You need to say, this is what I'm giving to you, and explain to them, instead of as some persons may think, you just dish it out like in a shop. So you come and you have a checklist and you have 5 items, and you just come 5 items and you say here, and because generally if we for example, I guess I'm putting on my pharmacist hat now, when you say something to someone, even if it's written, you tend to remember it and understand it better than you having to go home and sit down and read for yourself, take one tablet every 8 hours, every 3 hours. Some persons may not fully understand that. They think it's 3 times a day, for instance, every 8 hours, but it's 24 hours in a day. That is what it is, yeah? So 8 hours, every 8 hours during this 24-hour period, is the same as 3 times a day, but not 3 times a day every time you eat a meal. So you take one breakfast and 12 o'clock lunch, because that is not an 8-hour spacing. You understand?
Well, I want to butt in here, Camille, because this is very interesting. You mentioned 24 hours, but I'm of the impression when a doctor give you some medication, he says, all right, 3 times a day. I find 3 times a day, 6 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 6 o'clock in the evening.
No.
No.
So I'm supposed to wake up at night and to.
No, you time it. You time it in such a way that you don't have to wake up. So you divide your day by 3. Your 8 hours, and you'll get your 3 times a day.
Okay.
So for instance, you may take it at 6, 10, and 2.
Yes.
So you have to space it.
Believe me, I am certain that many people are of the impression that when you say 3 times a day, we're talking about daylight hours.
No, you have to include the nighttime hours.
You have to.
Similar to twice a day is every 12 hours.
Is every 12 hours.
Every 12 hours. Yeah, so 6 in the morning,
and
6 in the evening. And that's right. That's like your waking time. Every 4 times a day is every 4 hours.
That is probably the most important piece of information I think that will come out tonight, because believe me, people are of that impression, and I'm not excluding myself. I'm not ashamed to say so. 3 times a day is between 6 a.m. and 6
p.m. No.
Yes.
So right, so that is also part of the pharmacy function in terms of educating patients, because we are public health officials. So we need to also, within our sphere of pharmacy, educate patients in terms of how you take your medicine, the side effects, the contraindications, you know, because sometimes you need to give guidance, especially in, like, let's say, in the private pharmacies, because they do have an over-the-counter component, meaning that these medicines they're not in terms of their therapeutic potency, so they can be sold without a prescription. However, they will still need to have guidance as to how to take just simple things like cough and cold medicines. You need to know what kind of, is it productive, is it non-productive, you know those kinds of things. Is the patient diabetic? So you look at some of the ingredients, so you know maybe this patient. So those kinds of advice and information that is needed for patients.
One of the,
because we all go ahead.
No, I was about to say, one of the things, based on what she's saying, you find that patients tend to go to the pharmacy and they will ask the pharmacist, their opinion on medication. The child has a cough, the child has a cold. So as she's saying, the role is one of education as well. And this is where the pharmacists at times have to know when, it's like gambling, when to hold, when to throw. So you know when to give, when to give them the advice. And when to refer.
Right.
And that is important.
And as we on this, I just want to say that I think it was during the break that the discussion on patients and prescription medicines and just having to refill and refill and refill and refill. Now, generally, the physician, what we, in terms of setting the standards, there are certain medicines which are prescription only. And I just want to single out antibiotics. Antibiotics, there is a serious, within the WHO, you have all this discussion where there is an abuse of antibiotics. And because some are being sold over the counter, it is causing problems, for instance, when they get into the hospital at secondary care level and tertiary care in terms of finding appropriate treatment for those conditions. And sometimes it may appear as if some antibiotics are no longer effective as they should have been.
Because they have been abused.
Being abused. And because a flu is a viral infection. And an antibiotic should not be given for the cold. So, these are these standards that we're looking into to see how we can have, pharmacists and the regulatory aspect of it understand, and even the public for that matter, understand that antibiotics are prescription only medicines and should never be sold over the counter.
And it happens all the time. And you find sometimes patients come to you, just as she said, with a cold, unless you have somebody with a pneumonia or something, you really want to give them antibiotics, or they have a tonsillitis that you think is a strep or something. But some patients think once they have the cold and they go to the doctor, they should get antibiotic. And if you don't give them antibiotic, it's because you didn't treat them. I go and she didn't give me anything, or he didn't give me anything. And as a result, they abuse the antibiotic. And when you really need it, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Because there are some resistance. That's the thing.
So the regulation is basically to help the public with better health outcomes. That is what. It's not to, to put any kind of draconian measures, It's just to help the public for their own better health outcome in the event that something were to happen. Because in this period, there's a lot of organisms which they're noticing are very resistant. And they're the highest, that's the Azobactam, and so those antibiotics, which are that high level, but it's a step approach. So you start with the lower ones, the first generation, then you go up second, third, and then you go, But I've even read in recent times that they're looking to have was it a fifth generation or so, to see if they can curb some of the resistance of the organisms which they're noticing now that's circulating within our world. So these measures of regulation is to help protect our public, to ensure that, whenever the need arises and they have to use antibiotics for whatever kind of treatment, then it is effective.
Right. Doc, I want to come to you. So a patient comes to you and you've given them a prescription to get some medication. They're supposed to take it for 2 weeks. When the 2 weeks is over, it's finished. But the patient probably, they've gotten some relief, but not what they would like. So they go back to the pharmacist and says, listen, doc gave me that, but I need a couple more because I'm not 100%. So I need a few more tablets to get me there. Should the pharmacist dispense that medication?
If the prescription does not have a refill on it, they shouldn't. If the prescription has refill times 3, then you have 3 refills on it. You can go back for that.
Right.
But if you don't have a refill on that prescription, it should not be given.
So the patient should go back to the doctor?
Yes, they should go back and say, well, look, this work, or they can call depending on what it is. And then the physician at his or her discretion may refill. Okay. But you should not just go back and get refills like that.
Okay.
And, people may think, well, this whole business of regulation is, putting pressure on people. It's not that. It's for the good of all concerned. For the good of the patient as well as for the pharmacist, right? This relationship is not an antagonistic one. It's one of collaboration and working together for the good of everybody. So when you see regulations, you go to the pharmacy and the pharmacist tell you, no, you have to go to your doctor, or you have to go to your dentist, or in the case of the animals, you have to go to your veterinarian. It is the regulations that are being put in place. Some of these were always there. The Act provides for them, but they're now being enforced. Because there's a lot of things on the market. You get all kind of weird meds. Every day you see a different something coming. Right? And you have the Act for poisons, you have the Act for food and drugs, and people just put in things. You have a lot of them there. And how do you decide? If there is no regulation, could you imagine what is going to happen?
That is going to be
so there must be some regulation, and we have acts there in the law to deal with them. So it's up to the body to enforce it.
Right, because there are consequences. I mean, for everything. If a pharmacist, for example, agrees to give a patient some medication that was not prescribed, and something happens to the patient, the pharmacist is liable.
Yes, and then the thing about it is, the pharmacist may try to help you in all good faith, and something happens.
Yes.
They forget that the pharmacist tried to help you. Is the pharmacist give you something wrong?
Yes.
You go to the doctor did whatever in all good faith, and something go wrong, the doctor give me bad medication. So let us just regulate and let's keep things the way they're supposed to be, and everybody do what they're supposed to do, and we should be okay.
Right. So our telephone line is open, folks. The number is 435-2041. If you have any questions you would like to ask, you can do so now. The number again, 435-2041. You can call us. Dr. John is here, and of course our chief pharmacist, Mrs. Isaac, is also here, and they're quite willing to provide answers for you. So again, 435-2041. That's the number you can call and ask your questions. While we wait on the call, Doc, as it relates to patients and taking their medication, sometimes you have situations where where a patient comes to you. Let's say they probably visited another doctor before, comes to you, did not tell you that, let's say, for example, they were taking X medication for something. How important it is that you know what medications the patient was taking before prescribing something else for them?
It's extremely important, okay? Just as good clinical history is important, a history of your medication is important. And sometimes patients don't see it that way. I usually am quite happy when the patients come with their little bag of medication and they put it down.
Right.
I pour it out and we start to count. Okay, let me see this one. And they would tell you, yes, this one. And you see they have like about 3 bags and 3 bags with the same thing. Just as you say, one might say Tylenol, one say acetaminophen, one say Panadol. Same thing. So then you now have to look at it and say, okay, these 3 are the same. And let me see this one. How long you've been taking this one? Do you take everything that is in this bag? I'm okay with that. In that case, I know everything that you have.
Right.
But some patients, when they come and they tell you the little pink tablet and the little yellow one, this is where the headache starts, because you don't know what this is. Sometimes they may be able to tell you, well, the little pink one, when I take it, I have to go to the bathroom a lot. I pass a lot of water. So you have an idea, maybe this is a diuretic. And I cannot cease telling patients, know your medication. If you don't want to come with a little bag of medicine, write it down. But when you go into your doctor, make sure you go with all your medication
so that
we know what you're on. Because it gives an idea as to what's happening with you. Some patients don't do that, but it's important that they do it. And even you ask not just the prescribed medicines, but the over-the-counters. Tell me everything you're taking, with each vitamin, everything. I want to know. Because all of every little thing that you put into you counts.
Right. Let's go to the telephone, Doc. We have a caller. Doctor on call. Good evening.
Can I put this on?
Okay. We're getting a little feedback. Okay. Go ahead, caller.
Yes. One thing I did not hear you just relate is the prints on the label, the bottle labels, which is becoming smaller and smaller, and sometimes it's impossible to read. Could you address this?
Okay, thank you very much, caller. Thanks a lot. Doc, Camille, speaking about the prints getting smaller and smaller and not being able to read.
Well, some manufacturers, of course, I know in terms of raw materials, they're but that has to be a manufacturing issue, but I do understand. But there's also a cause for concern because sometimes some medicines we know can be substandard, and sometimes they don't write it the same way as the patented company or that company is supposed to do. So that is a cause for concern that maybe should be looked into. Especially that could be a red flag. But there are some medicines which are, of course, genuine medicines, but based on the presentation, the label, because I've noticed that sometimes the writing on the label is not very clear for you for it to be read easy. But it's a cause for concern that should be looked into as well.
All right. But from our end, from the council end, okay, though we may not be able to control that, what we need is our labeling, the label that the pharmacy will put. Right. Yes. That standard, where they would put clearly the name of the person. They will put the name and the address of the pharmacy who sold the medication, the date the medicine was dispensed. They're going to give their directions in English, as we said. They're going to put the expiry date of the product that they're dispensing, and they will put the name or the initial of the pharmacist who dispense the medication, and the quantity of the medication. And wherever you go, that is a basic standard for labeling. So when you go to your local pharmacy, these are the things you're supposed to see, as well as the prescription number.
Okay.
And if there is a generic name and the strength, that should be displayed.
Okay, wonderful.
But that is for those that's prescription. But the over-the-counter, we do notice that there are some which, that the writing is the label, the writing on the label is very small, So but as Doc said, that is not something, of course we can regulate in terms of, the way the label should be written by the pharmacist, but in terms of the medicines that are being procured or brought in or imported, we don't have much control over,
All right. Let me ask this, Camille. Sorry about that. I'm not sure. We get those little things every now and again. Also, let's take that call before I come to you. Doctor and call. Good evening. Hello.
It's loud.
Hello, caller. Okay, I'm not sure what's happening there. Right, so a patient comes to the pharmacist, and I notice now, for example, some pharmacists, they keep records of the patient. So a patient comes, they can go into the system, and they have records of the type of medication that a patient normally uses. So the patient comes in, and the pharmacist noticed that he has a prescription for a medication that he doesn't normally use. What should the pharmacist do in a situation like this?
He has a prescription.
Yeah, for medication.
But a prescription is a legal document. So if all the requirements and all the various aspects of filling out on the prescription, as Dr. Stevens John would have mentioned, in terms of the name, the age of the physician's signature, the contact information, the registration number, which is absolutely important on any prescription, and all the details. A prescription is a legal document, and the pharmacist can fill and has a right to fill the prescription.
Right.
Even if their history may not indicate, because you see conditions, different things happen to persons, so whatever it is, because a prescription is a legal document. So they have a right to fill the prescription, even if the history over the years may not have shown that that is a medicine that they would have used in prior.
Right. Actually, Doc, where I'm going with this, sometimes a patient may be coming to you, and for some reason they decide to go to a different doctor, not telling that doctor that they've been seeing you and they've been using a different kind of medication, and so the doctor, without that knowledge, goes ahead and prescribes something different. And I'm wondering here if the pharmacist shouldn't probably make a call, because the pharmacist is aware that, look, that patient has been seeing Dr. John for a while, and so this is where I was.
Of the question, okay.
Yeah, that's where I was going with it actually.
So it's a different position, and over the years, this patient has been taking X medicine. Let's say the medicine may have been a hypertensive, and then they went for the first time to see another physician and they gave something different. Then of course maybe you give a call to the physician, and in a very kind of professional way, let the doctor know that the patient has been coming here for X amount of years, and we noticed these are the meds that they have been taken, but they went to you, we noticed for the first time, and we noticed that there was a change, and the physician and pharmacist can have that dialogue as to give guidance,
This is where I was going in terms of because some patients they don't give information.
Yes, they don't. And that is a valid point what Camille said, because sometimes, for instance, you may have one hypertensive medication, antihypertensive medication, that may have caused coughing in the patient.
Right.
And there are some pharmacists who really know their patients, and they may have recognized that this was discontinued because a patient, it caused cough, and it was switched to something else, and then you see they come back with that same medication which caused the cough, but the patient didn't tell the other doctor, well, I took this before. Or sometimes the patient don't remember, because it may have been a while and they don't remember, and not until they take it then they say, but wait, this is the same medicine that used to cause a cough. And the other doctor didn't know.
Right. Yeah. So that's the line.
Situations like that, yes, professionally, we can collaborate. We can work.
So there must be a good relationship between the patient, doctor,
and the pharmacist. Yes. It has to be a good working relationship.
Let's go back to the telephone and see if we can get that call. Doctor in call, good evening.
Yes, good evening. I am wondering if there is any random surveillance on drugs that are available over the counter. Grenada is a small place. We single number pharmacies in Grenada here. In recent time, there was a drug over the counter, one a day for men on one side of the box. And then when you look at the back, it says, if you are pregnant, do not take it. And that was available in more than one pharmacies. What's up with that?
Okay, thank you, caller. Camille?
Yes, so there's usually, for example, I would give an example, yeah? Sometimes you have vitamins, yeah? And you would say male vitamins or maybe prenatal vitamins, because if someone is pregnant, of course, they would have to have it, especially the iron and folic acid, their content would be much higher than in the regular vitamins, yeah? So the male vitamins, you may have like the zinc, a high, concentration of zinc, and those others that, would help with the male, the male species, yeah? So you would have, because persons know their vitamins because they more or less contain the same kinds of minerals and so forth in these vitamins. Vitamins and minerals, they generally contain the same thing but in different concentrations. So you would have, what I would refer to as like a disclaimer, whereby persons who are pregnant would know that even if their vitamins, although it may say for men over 50 or 50 plus or so, but the females would know who are pregnant would not take it because maybe the level of vitamin A may be much higher in it. Maybe it would not have sufficient iron, which would help for that unborn child, or folic acid. It may or may not contain folic acid, which is needed for that development. So that would be like a disclaimer. So nobody can, let's say, go and sue the company to say, you did not say that. You said it's over 50, but nevertheless, you did not specifically say that it is not for pregnant persons. So that is like a disclaimer that you would have on the product.
Okay, wonderful indeed. It is almost 10 o'clock. Doc, you realize how quickly time went by. The good thing though, you will be back next week because we have quite a bit more to discuss, and I want to touch some more on the patient-doctor-pharmacist relationship, the importance of or the role of patients with their medication and all of that. So next week we can continue along those lines. But before we wrap, just briefly, touch on the role again of the council before we wrap.
Okay. So, as we said, the council is a statutory body, legally composed of a number of persons from different stratas of the community. Right? I'm the chair of the council, the chief pharmacist, the CMO. These are the people who make up the council. We have a representative from the Chamber of Commerce, from the medical fraternity, the pharmacies, two pharmacists, I should say the pharmacies, somebody from Ministry of Agriculture, and our legal expert. Okay, and the goal is to protect and promote and maintain health, safety, and well-being of the public by ensuring high standards of professionalism, that it's maintained by pharmacists, pharmacies, pharmacy owners, and all involved in the business of pharmacy. We're also here for setting standards as it relates to the training of pharmacists, ensuring that they get the level of training that would take them not only to Grenada, but wherever they go. And basically regulating things as it relates to the business of distributing, wholesaling, importing pharmacies, and making sure that the act is enforced.
Okay, wonderful. Camille, anything in closing? Anything you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Yes, I remember that there was some discussion, I'm not sure if it was during the break or so, where I want to touch back on the inspector, and no one, if you debar the inspector from inspecting the premises or any premise where pharmacy medicines are stored or wholesale, stored or sold or what have you, then they're guilty of an offense, because by law, the inspector has a right to enter any premise where pharmaceuticals or medicines are stored. Or sold, or for whatever matter. And I also want to emphasize the point that pharmacists must be pharmacies and pharmacists must be guided even in terms of the sale of antibiotics and controlled substances, because there seem to be we want to ensure that is not sold without a prescription. Even the injectables should not be sold directly to patients, especially injectables for IV that need some kind of professional individual to administer. Apart from the subcutaneous, which is the insulin, because you just inject that underneath the skin, which, individuals can do. But anything that has to do with intramuscular injection or intravenous injection, that should not be sold to individuals. Okay. It should not be sold to individuals, especially those of the controlled medicines.
Okay.
That is a no-no.
All right. Wonderful.
Sold to the institutions.
Institutions for,
for administration.
And wholesalers should not be dealing directly with the public. Wholesalers, retail, distributors. They should deal with they should sell to retail pharmacies. And that's where individuals would go to fill their prescriptions. They should not be filling prescriptions in no wholesale or distribution facility. It should be sold only from pharmacies.
From pharmacies, okay.
So I just wanted to emphasize.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Camille. It was indeed a pleasure having you on the program. We're looking forward to having you next week. Dr. John, we're looking forward to having you guys next week to continue the conversation. There's a lot more, and it's so important to, and I want to use the word dispense information to the public.
Oh, yes.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
Public education is important.
Yes,
very much so.
Because sometimes thing happens because the public, they're not educated on it, so they're misguided.
Yes, indeed. So thank you very much, and all the best until next Tuesday.
Next time
for another Doctor and Call.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks. That's our program for this evening. Don't forget you can join us tomorrow evening for our release at 8. Until then, do have a good night.
Drug abuse, cancer,
measles,